Hey, what's up? It's me, your favorite internet roommate. I've been a Zelda fan since I was on my gaga goo goo shit. And with that comes playing all the games, watching a bunch of long ass video essays, listening to chill music playlists of them. I like this one in particular. But it also means I have seen how the Zelda fan base's general opinion has changed on some of these games. I remember when people thought this was ugly and too kiddie and childish and cartoony, you know, it was on its gaga goo goo shit. Me personally, I actually like it. Haha, I guess I'm just built different. I was like 7, so. But you know, years later, that opinion completely changed. They realized they were too harsh on this game. Now it's looked back at fondly and the art style is considered timeless. So you would think the Zelda fan base would then, you know, learning from this experience of to not just judge a game simply based off of shallow merits like that. You know, you think they'd learn their lesson, never do that again.
Damn. Here we go again.
But out of this sea of Zelda games, mainline games, side games, side games, we don't talk about those games. I have not seen a single Zelda game where the consensus opinion on it has changed as much than with Twilight Princess. At one point, this was considered one of the best Zelda games, but not for the right reasons. People were mainly praising it because it was the antithesis to Wind Waker. While Wind Waker was this little baby shit, Twilight Princess was the hairy-chested, manly JoJo character, you know what I mean? But as opinions on Wind Waker changed, instead of just realizing you can appreciate different Zeldas for the different things they do, they just took the hate that was simmering on Wind Waker and just pushed it somewhere else, and that being on Twilight Princess. Which is just weird. Like, why would you hate on a game for not being something that it wasn't trying to be to begin with, you know? Like with Wind Waker, they were clearly going for a much more whimsical and colorful and very blue kind of look. And for Twilight Princess, a much more darker, serious, and brown kind of look. Which to me, I just see that as cool that this one game series can bounce from these two very contrasting aesthetics. Thank you both for being part of this, by the way, and posing. I really appreciate it. Oh yeah, man, of course. You know, anytime we could help. Yeah, and by the way, really cool jackets, like matching the colors that I was saying. Good idea. Oh, thanks. Yeah. We actually both got them from Apari. Yeah, Apari also. Apari. Yeah. That's right, folks. We're once again sponsored by our friends over at Apari. And for anyone that doesn't know, Apari is actually an artist-owned brand. So all this artwork you see on these pieces here is all original artwork. And if any of these pieces happen to catch your eye, you should use my link at the top or in the description and go get some for yourself. Doing that also really helps my channel out. And if you're specifically interested in getting one of these jackets yourself, then I highly stress that you follow Apari at all of these socials. Apari does seasonal drops, and these will be part of their collection coming out in September. So I really highly stress, if you want this piece, you should follow all these socials here so you can be updated when that drop happens. Especially do that because I definitely think these will sell out. But with all that being said, I do really want to thank Apari for always working with me and letting me be as creative as I want with these integrations, and just for the support that they've always given to the channel. Once again, that link is at the top and in the description. But with all that being said, thank you, Apari, and back to the video. I feel recently, in general, the opinion on Twilight Princess has become a lot more lukewarm. Too many times I've seen it brushed off in the discussion of the top 3, top 5 best Zelda games. I've heard all kinds of things. It's too edgy. It lacks identity because it's just Ocarina of Time on steroids. It didn't age well. Oh, Link's a furry. And for a motherfucker named me, I've always seen Twilight Princess as like a top 3 Zelda game. And I feel it tends to get a pretty unfair rep. So I wanted to make this video to, you know, just give it a big hug, maybe feed it a warm bowl of soup, and overall just tell it like, hey, you're pretty great. I want to highlight a couple of things I really love about this game and that I think makes it special. But this is not a review. I don't make reviews. I talk about shit I like. Damn, that's kind of sick, huh? Quote what I just said in the comments so I look like a genius philosopher who's just constantly dropping gems. IP-isms. Today we defend the honor of Milady Twilight Princess, also known as One of the main things that I think makes Twilight Princess special is its atmosphere. I would argue that Twilight Princess is the most atmospheric Zelda game next to Majora's Mask. The vibes of TP are just not like anything else. The world in general has this like very lonely, desolate, melancholic vibe. It reminds me a lot of Shadow of the Colossus in more ways than one, I'll say. There's not quite anything that matches that feeling of riding on Epona at Hyrule Field, specifically at night, just hearing this ghostly singing of what I think is Malon, the feeling I get is chilling, but also serene and relaxing. And Twilight Princess always finds that vibe right in between of like weird, eerie, and chill and relaxing. I mean, it is called Twilight Princess, which is like the middle of light and day, so. And Twilight Princess is just full of these little pockets of lonely serenity. You have its take on the Gerudo Desert, which is just this sandy, barren wasteland. Snow Peak is ominous and soothing. It's so lonely that it feels cold. The only sound you really hear is this chilling wind. The Sacred Grove is this forgotten, overgrown, just covered in greenery, ancient place where you can hear the trickling of waterfalls and the chirping of birds. But this game's atmosphere has a pretty wide range too. Like when things get dark and creepy in Twilight Princess, they get f***ing dark and creepy, okay? Like even just the sound design of these many Twilight enemies is just the right amount of freaky. You look at this bird and it makes this sound, and you're like, yeah, that is what that creepy motherfucking thing would sound like. But even just that weird digitized sound that the Twilight makes is just out of this world, man. And for all my headphone users, I know this sounds even more surreal, because like, it just like farting back and forth from headphone to headphone. The sound of the Twilight world is just so eerie. It's like a mix of Zelda and Silent Hill. Like right when you come into it, and then you hear this, it feels like I just no-clipped into the back rooms, dude. If liminal spaces had like a theme, this would be it. And this masterful atmosphere also goes into the dungeons. This game to me has the best set of dungeons and bosses compared to other Zelda games. But that's not because they're the most complex in level design or puzzles or anything like that, but more through the experience, through the atmosphere. Each dungeon was beautifully distinct in both vibe and aesthetic. I remember coming into Arbiter's Grounds and hearing this, and just being freaked the f*** out, which I should be, as this is a prison where they once tortured prisoners. And it legit feels like a place where like the evil never went away. It just like built up and continued to haunt the place. Like you can still hear all the tortured souls lingering around in the air. The Palace of Twilight is another one. All the little black geometric squares in the air, the black foggy waterfalls. Look at this bewitched, foggy, violet skybox, dude. While I understand not liking this game's aesthetic for it trying to do things realistically, I feel like you have to appreciate it for the more artistic things it did, like these skyboxes, like the Twilight creatures. Look at these citizens. They're just standing there, menacingly. The city in the sky is an MC Escher painting, like come on. It's weird, it's dreamlike, it's the most liminal space out of this whole liminal space ass game. And the only thing you can hear is this howling wind. It feels exactly what a ancient floating city in the sky would feel like. And the fact that you can see the dragon boss just flying around the whole time before you fight him, that's cool as shit. Which is another thing, the atmosphere also helps the bosses of this game. Every boss in Twilight Princess feels epic and menacing and oppressive. It makes every fight feel like a David versus Goliath type beat. I will say though, the atmosphere being so good with these bosses almost makes them worse combat-wise, because the atmosphere gets you so hyped for this giant, oppressive, menacing monster, and then you just beat him like every other Zelda game. Hit him in the boo-boo spot, use your item, whack him a couple times, repeat 3 times, he's done. But still, the atmosphere is great. I just wanted the fight and combat to match that atmosphere. And there's plenty of moments in Twilight Princess that like tinge on this epic Lord of the Rings ass feel. But you also get some of the most comforting atmospheres in this game too. This is still the best Hyrule Castle town, feeling like this bustling, lively, cheerful place. It makes me wish that Twilight Princess was a game that had more and better side quests like other Zelda games, because I want to interact with the people of the city in this world more. Agatha's little castle feels like this Alice in Wonderland colorful place. The hidden village is just a dusty western cowboy town in a medieval fantasy game. Maybe you want to spend a day in the steamy spa with your Goron brethren as they stare into your soul. Lake Hylia and the fishing hole is one of the most like tranquil, enchanting places in the series. The sound of the waterfalls, the ducks swimming around, the cherry blossom tree petals just gracefully falling into the water. I usually don't fish in these games, but here I did because of this shit. And of course, the homey, relaxing Ordon Village. This is my childhood video game home. Like, I even played Ocarina of Time before this, but the atmosphere here, the vibes, the chillness is just unmatched. It's one of the most peaceful places in the entire series. The running water, the clucking of cuckoos. And while yes, the start of the game is quite long and slow, and I've heard it described as boring, but that is the point! They want you to get familiar and fall into the atmosphere of the simple, mundane farm life. Not only because then it will greatly contrast to you later on doing some of the most epic shit ever, like riding on a dragon during a thunderstorm, you know, so you feel that progression of atmosphere. But it also humanizes Link. You take this Link in comparison to someone like Link, where from the jump it's already established he is different. He is the chosen one. The Elder Tree has summoned him. But here, you're just a Link. Anywhere else, you'd be a twink. You're just a simple farm boy, and I think that's clearly intentional, as they make you do all these menial tasks, including herding goats. Twice. Because they really want you to live and breathe in this atmosphere of this mundane farm life. By the end of the game, when you're snowboarding with a fucking Yeti, you will be questioning like, damn, I really went from this to snowboarding with a I feel with the choice of having this Zelda be more adult or rated teen, I guess, it allows for far more expression with the types of atmospheres they can capture in this game. There's moments in this game that I cannot see any other Zelda game being able to pull off or do. But it also explains the wide range of vibes, from lonely to haunting to comforting to a Old West Town. Funny enough, I've actually heard people complain about this range of atmospheres. Oh, it has tonal whiplash. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be a dark, serious game or a super funny, goofy time sumo wrestling game. It's called Twilight Princess. Like, you can't just have a game that has this cutscene and also this minigame. Twilight Princess. And that's what makes it clearly lack an identity, because it can't Twilight being the in-between of light and dark, it makes a lot of sense for Twilight Princess to have moments that range from very dark to very funny, goofy, and light. So when I hear people say it doesn't have any identity, or it's just Ocarina of Time 2 or Ocarina of Time on steroids, I don't really get that, because no other Zelda game can capture as many different atmospheres in a single game. And its unique atmosphere is what gives it its identity. But of course, that atmosphere wouldn't be as potent without being complemented by the There is not enough talk about how phenomenal this OST really is. It's usually always gunning for the top spot, at least for me, in terms of Zelda OSTs, which is impressive considering how good Zelda OSTs usually are. Of course, it has those bops that you can just listen to all the time. One of my personal faves, for example, is Meet Princess Zelda Again. It's gotta be my favorite rendition of the Zelda theme. It's just so chill and relaxing and makes me altogether feel more hopeful. Same goes for this game's rendition of Kakariko Village. Oh my god, just the wind instruments and the fat ass burr, 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 along with that main melody, it's just so good. But much like how TP's atmosphere can range so wildly, the music has to complement that atmosphere. So thus you get some of the most soothing, lonely tracks in the whole series. Like, listen to the Snow Peak theme. It's just these echoing, distant chants and then just sporadically these little notes. It sounds as cold and lonely as this place is. Faron Woods is not only super unique compared to other Zelda games' like forest themes, but I feel it perfectly captures the vibe of Twilight Princess. Again, finding the twilight, that middle of like relaxing but eerie. It makes me feel like a wizard on a quest. You have the most epic, grand Hyrule field theme ever. Just that blaring start of it has this driving beat that makes you feel like you're riding a horse. And just all the different places that the melody goes into throughout the song is super powerful. Gerudo Desert still has that upbeat rhythm from Ocarina of Time, but it's far more slow and stripped back, a lot less dancey. If anything, it's more awe-inspiring with all the like little chanting. Just listen to these deep vibratos, man. It's so good. The theme that plays when Zant shows up is pure nightmare fuel, and it's also the perfect soundtrack to like any creepypasta. The City in the Sky theme just makes me think I'm actually hearing the uku at all times. It's weird and it's alien, but it's exactly what I think this kind of place would sound like. And I feel like that with a lot of the OSTs in this game. They're so masterfully done and fitting for their environments. Like Lake Hylia and the fishing hole are already some of the most chill places, but when you complement that with this theme, it becomes one of the most harmonious places in the series. And somehow Twilight Princess, again a medieval fantasy game, has one of the most ass-shaking bops old western themes ever. Also, what's great about the OST is the clever usage of older games' music, always being intertwined with places that make sense. Like how the Sacred Grove with the Skull Kid is just the Lost Woods theme, but just a far more darker, contorted take to it. When you go back in time to the old Temple of Time, and of course it's the Ocarina of Time theme, time to start walking all slow and respectfully again. And when you have to connect to the link from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, what do? Of course, howl the music from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. But the best part of the music is how adaptive and dynamic it is. Like when you're fighting a giant beast and the music stings alongside with all your hits, it makes everything feel so impactful. Not to mention the way that certain themes are constantly being reinterpolated. It makes for some of the best moments in the game. Like when Colin is telling you how you inspired him to be courageous, and of course one of the best tunes is playing Courage, but then later when you go out to Hyrule Field and ride around, what do you hear interpolated into the Hyrule Field theme? The theme of Courage. And who could forget Midna's theme? Which is so interesting because during the title screen music, which by the way is fucking amazing, probably my favorite title screen of all these Zelda games, right after you hear the beautiful howl, you hear just a little trail of Midna's theme. giving you an idea that Midna will be an integral part to this game. And come on, nothing feels more urgent and emotionally taxing when you have to take Midna back to Zelda as you're hearing Midna's lament. Man, I really wish they'd fix that thing where, like, if you get near enemies, the music, why does the music change? It should just be Midna's theme the whole time. Someone needs to fix that. I thought they were gonna fix it with the HD. They did not. Overall, the OST has such a wide range of bops and beautifully complements the atmosphere of this game, and is pretty much my favorite OST of these games. But now we gotta move on to the biggest factors of what makes this game just peak. You can hold the dog and the cats too. Half the hours I spent playing this game was just me carrying around all these adorable little I love how if you took one of the cats, the other cats would follow you. I love that you could even play fetch with the dog. Come on, can Breath of the Wild do that? Can Tears of the Kingdom do that? Can any other Zelda game? No, it can't. But Twilight Princess can. Come on, like when you put him down and then he just like looks at you all happy and he's wagging his tail. Oh my god. So yeah, peak game. Enough said. Moving on. As I said before, I think these are the best set of dungeons and bosses in the entire series. Don't get me wrong, Monk Mask Kashia, he's a dog, he's really sick, I like him. But that's just like one boss in Breath of the Wild. TP got like 7. But I'll say it again, what makes these bosses and dungeons interesting and great isn't the like complexity of level design or anything like that. If anything, I'd say their designs are pretty streamlined and quite simple. Granted, the water temple is a bit more complex. Like I've heard grown adults say it's too hard. I saw this shit when I was 8. I guess I'm just built different. Oh, hello? Ice Spice? Nah, I didn't save your number. But they make up for that simple design with atmosphere and aesthetic and of course, the really cool experiences. I might not remember solving some crazy out-of-the-box puzzle or anything like that, but I do remember having the monkeys swing me to the boss room. I remember using the iron boots to stick to the ceiling through magnetism. I remember Tony Hawk 360 kickflipping my way through the Arbiter's Grounds. I also enjoyed how many of these dungeons had me constantly swapping between regular Link and Wolf Link. Like I have this pretty traumatic memory where I was in the Arbiter's Ground and like Link was walking all slow and I was like, what the f going on? I was trying to figure it out. And then I turned to a wolf and turned on my senses and there was these ghost rats infesting me. I also love the detail that almost all of these dungeons aren't just temples. All of these dungeons are actual like places. One's a husk of a tree, another one's a working place for the Gorons, the other one's a prison, a mansion, a city in the sky. It makes the locations feel that much more immersive and actually part of a real world versus just being like a game thing, if that makes sense. And the same idea of not being the most complex thing, but making up for that with just amazing experiences and atmosphere can be said for the bosses as well. Combat-wise, yeah, I wish these things were a little more interesting. But if you look at these bosses as moments, then you can't help but be awe-inspired. You're fighting a dragon in a thunderstorm. This thing is just a Shadow of the Colossus fight. Fighting all the dead soldiers and Star-Lord in the Arbiter's Grounds, who just won't die to the point where you have to beat him as a floating head. Meeting this adorable Yeti couple that you absolutely love, and then the wife scares the shit out of you. But then you get this really great boss fight where you have to use the ice to kind of see where she is. It's pretty cool. And then you get this super lovely moment where after she's pure yellow comes and tells her that she doesn't need the mirror. She just needs to look at his eyes. And then their love sprouts all these hearts, including the heart piece. Come on, who said this game got no charm? And dog, come on, this is the best Ganondorf fight. Twilight Princess gave me that in the most epic way possible. And 3 other phases. I get to do the tennis again, but with a corrupted Zelda. I get to fight Beast Ganon as a beast myself. I get to fight Ganondorf horseback with the help of Zelda. And then of course the ultimate climactic battle against him at the end. Honestly, I don't think it's even a competition, because even the mini bosses in this game slap. Like, y'all remember Death's Sword? Just coming into that room, seeing this sword in the ground sealed by all these little tags and threads? And then you cut the thread and this cool ass motherfucker comes out. All I could ever hope for is future games to have dungeons and bosses at this level in terms of atmosphere and aesthetic and just really cool experiences. But now I want to move on to the final thing I love about this game and what I think is the real heart to this game. Now, while I easily could use this section to entirely talk about a single character, I actually want to praise TP for having multiple characters with depth and development, more so than really any other Zelda game. For starters, this version of Link alongside Wind Waker Link are some of my favorite Links there are. Oftentimes I feel like Link could just be too much of like a nothing character. Oh, he's good and courageous because destiny and he has to be a good blank slate kind of guy. But with these 2 Links in particular, I feel that they go a little bit deeper into humanizing them. I talked earlier about the importance of the long-ass intro in Twilight Princess. Having this intro, you completely understand where his morals and goodness comes from. He grew up in this village and we see a day-to-day of his life just helping the other villagers. So of course he would be someone who wants to help others. But it also gives him more personal stakes to then be courageous. Versus just being courageous because he's Link. He has the Triforce of Courage. He has to be courageous. He's destined. Can you tell I don't fuck with like destiny as like a narrative thing? I just think it's kind of boring and like overplayed and done with. And for me, I've always felt like it makes a person doing something less impactful because like, well, he was destined to do it. Of course he was going to do it, you know, versus like doing it because he wanted to do it. It feels like this Link isn't courageous because he has the Triforce of Courage, but that he gets the Triforce of Courage because he is courageous. I mean, it only shows up right after he goes urgently to go help his friends, regardless of the dangers that could be in his way. It also helps you understand these characters' personalities more and grow closer to them. In Ocarina of Time, for example, I barely spent any time talking to Saria, so when I had this moment where she's saying goodbye to me forever, and it's supposed to be this really sad moment, cinematically it works, but like, I don't even know this chick. Link knows her, I don't know her, I don't care. But here, because of that long-ass intro, I lived this farm life for a while. And thus, I care about these kids, I care about these characters. So I feel motivated to help them. I understand where Link is coming from. No more has it made sense for Link to want to help people. Another moment that gives this Link a little more depth than other Links is during the most like trippy, horrifying scene in the whole game, where I've heard people call edgy, but like, it's not, it has a meaning. So basically this light spirit gives a vision to Link so that he understands what the power he's seeking with Midna 4 has done to people before him. As he explains, people wanted the power of the Triforce and would do anything to get it. Then he tells Link to beware of seeking the power of the shadows that him and Midna are trying to get. He basically says if you're not careful, this power will rule you. And as he says that, we see Link like this. As at this moment, he's feeling a taste of having everything he could ever want through power. And he makes this sinister face. But because he's a good person, he snaps out of it. No other Link has had this kind of like moral complexity to him. For a second, this Link felt the greed for power and darkness that overcame so many others. He's not just some perfect good guy who can't be affected by this kind of stuff, by human desire. Our hero can feel the same dark thoughts that any human or Hylian had felt before, but he pulled through because he's a good person, which is so much more powerful than just him being like unaffected by it because, oh, he's so good that he doesn't feel it. No, it's more powerful because he can actually understand what it's like to have this dark desire, and he still pulls through. This Link had to grapple with like the moral darkness that really isn't any human ever, which is super mature characterization and hasn't really been done with any other Link. But the same level of depth and characterization can be felt through a bunch of other characters too. Colin goes through this great arc of learning what courage really is and embodying that. While I feel other Zelda games have courage as like a thing, I feel TP is really the only one that really expounds on it, develops it. It feels integral to so much of Twilight Princess. It explains what courage really means, why Link has the Triforce of Courage, and how it influences others. Ocarina Link even gives us this iconic line, "A sword wields no strength unless the hand that holds it has courage." And your courage positively influences Colin. I really related to this little kid, you know? As a kid, I also looked up to Link and characters like Spider-Man, for example. These characters that seem almost unrealistically heroic, that understood that because they had power, they had to use it for good to help others. Because that's the right thing to do. And seeing him go from being shy and scared, only to then, through watching Link, not only realize that being courageous doesn't mean you have to be the strongest, buffest, most powerful guy, or that you have to have an absence of fear. No, it's being brave even though you have fear. And look at the character animation. He was clearly scared, but he decided to be brave and help his friend. This is just some side character kid, and he has this whole impactful character arc about one of the most important factors of Zelda, courage. And I love that in the ending credits scene, you see him walking around next to his dad with a sword and shield in hand. He's just completely grown as a character. Even Zant isn't just a one-note villain, he's completely unique. I've heard people complain that he should be the main villain. It didn't make sense to switch to Ganondorf, but I disagree with that completely, because if he was the main villain, it would go completely against his whole character. The first time we see Zant, he's like the most generic villain ever. He's composed, he's scary, and even his dialogue is the most like basic shit ever. He said, "Surrender or die." And I say basic not in like a critique way, but with the context of knowing who he actually is by the end of the game. Because when you look back at these lines, you realize this is all a facade. That's why he wears this big menacing mask to hide his very weak and meek stature. And as we continue to see him, that mask continues to both metaphorically and physically come off, until we find out who he actually is. He's no different than the people that the Light Spirit warned Link not to be. Someone who's ruled by power. He's so ruled by it that he was willing to be a puppet to someone else just to get it. Because without that power, he's nothing. And that's who Zant is. Nothing. But someone who was desperate and pathetic enough to be a puppet. All those times he was trying to act all powerful and almighty, it was all a facade. He isn't like that. Someone like him could never be the main villain, because without the power given to him, he is nothing. And that is so much more interesting of a character than just a basic imposing bad guy. And that characterization of being a pathetic nothing that only has power actually goes into his boss fight too. Kind of having a narrative through boss fight. You'll notice that in his boss fight, he only fights you with other bosses' tactics. Not only does it show that he's pretty dumb because you clearly beat all these bosses, but it also shows that he doesn't have any skill or unique things of his own. He just copies everyone else. And when all that doesn't work, what does he do? Just wildly throw anything he can at you. It's exactly how someone like him, this pathetic person who would rather be a puppet just to get power, would fight. Like even this like side character mini boss, a mini boss gets a character arc, learning to respect you as a warrior as you continue to beat him. But of course you can't talk about Twilight Princess without talking about the titular Twilight Princess Midna. In a lot of ways, she is the main character of this game, which already makes her easily the best companion. I don't think that's much of a debate. No other companion has had as much of a substantial arc as her and has been as integral to the story as her. Like, dog, she's literally part of the title. But I would also argue that she's easily the best written Zelda character ever. I'd put her development up there with characters like Zuko, for example. She comes from a people and world that were banished by the Light Dwellers. So understandably, when she comes into the Light World, she's gonna see everyone there as an enemy, which includes Link, which includes Zelda, because to her, they're just other Light Dwellers, her enemies. So instead of acting like her true self, she puts on a mask, a mischievous persona. But as her adventures continue with Link, she begins to warm up to him, which you get little gradual details of through the dialogue. And even when she does change, like, this character arc isn't sudden, it's a very gradual change. You might not even notice it happening. Or there's even early points where you can see this facade that she's trying to keep up start to crack a little. For example, she asks you for a sword and shield for her, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, she's more of a mage type character. Why would she need a sword and shield? Because it's not for her, it's for you. But again, she's trying to keep up a facade, so she kind of writes it off by saying like, oh, these suck, I guess you can have them. And then later on, when you're in Zora's domain and she sees all the Zoras trapped in ice, it clearly hurts her to see them like that, and she insists that we help them. And again, she tries to write this off later, basically saying that it totally wasn't for them. Like, it's not like she likes you or anything, Baka. Even if you understandably hate her at first, when you reach her desperate hour, without even noticing, you're suddenly rushing to save her life because her character gradually grew to care about you. Zant even tells her to join forces with him because Link is a Light Dweller, the same people who banished her people. Zant tells her that the Light Dwellers will never see her as anything more than a shadow. Both literally because she's a shadow in the light world, but also metaphorically as they'll never care about her, truly. But she chooses you and not to join forces with Zant. And then you selflessly help her. And when you bring her to Zelda, what does she do? Selflessly asks her to help you and not her. And then Zelda selflessly gives up her life for Midna. Which, by the way, is just great writing. Like, Zant told her that Light Dwellers will always see her as a shadow. Again, both literally and metaphorically. And then Link helps her. And then Zelda literally makes her not a shadow anymore, proving that the Light Dwellers do see Midna both metaphorically and now literally as more than just a shadow. Mwah! One of the cool little details about her character is that at first when she tells you to do things, she's telling you to do things, ordering you around like a servant. But as she grows and eventually changes, her demands become requests. Can you? Will you? She's asking for your help as a friend versus ordering you around as a servant. And when it's revealed that she is the Twilight Princess, she finally tells us the truth. That at first, when she came to Light World, she didn't care about the people in it or the world itself, which again, makes sense from where she comes from. But as she spent time with Link and saw the many selfless sacrifices that both Link and Zelda made, and it made her realize that she wants to protect them and their world too. It is just such a well done character arc. And the ultimate showing of her growth and true selflessness is her final bittersweet goodbye, where instead of keeping the mirror that links her world to Link's and Zelda, her friends' worlds, she shatters it. She selflessly gives up her friendship for the safety of both her people and their people, for the greater good. And look, I'm not the type to like use awards as like proof of something being better than something else, but I will say I do find it interesting that while other Zelda games have gotten nominated for the Outstanding Achievement in Story and Character Development Award, Twilight Princess is the only Zelda game that actually won that award. I don't know, it's a little interesting. Look, this game isn't perfect at all. There's plenty of problems with it that I've mentioned some in this video, but I do feel it isn't appreciated enough for the positives and unique strengths that it brings to this series. To me, it has qualities that easily make it a top 5 Zelda game in anyone's list. And as of right now, it's probably my favorite Zelda game ever next to Majora's Mask. More than anything, I hope that I was able to maybe give you some newfound appreciation for this game that I think deserves so much more love. But let me know, where does Twilight Princess fall in your personal list of Zelda games? And for all my returning viewers who are wondering where I've been, I'm still currently working on this Goliath 4-hour video on anime backgrounds, and that video will be ready to release in October. But until then, I can't do my usual 2-week upload schedule. So for now, I'll be uploading once a month, so you get a video this month, you'll get a video in September, and then finally you'll get the backgrounds video in October. But to both my new viewers and returning viewers, if you like what you saw today, you can leave me a like and a subscribe. I'll always appreciate that. But the best way to support me is on my Patreon. I even have a video on there where I rank the mini Zelda games. And speaking of that Patreon, I have a few new people to introduce. So if you're at the highest tier of my Patreon for 3 months and you continue to be from then on, you will have an exclusive pixel art character made for you, and it will be at the end of all my videos, like all these people. And in my absence, I've accrued a few names, so I'm gonna go ahead and name some of them now. First off, we have that guy with this beautiful Spike Spiegel pixel art. Then we got Neo, who based theirs off their FF14 character. Then we got one of my personal favorites of Grim here, this buff dude with this gas mask. Then we got Colton here with this hamster swordsman guy that I love. Yo boy Soul fittingly has Excalibur. We also have Teapot Nash here. We got our boy the Goose with the coolest goose pixel art ever. We got Otis with probably our smallest pixel art character. We have our very first official bartender with Richard Kickham here. Big Papa is just looking cool, shrugging. Esme's just sleeping away with her Psyduck by her side. Big Radar's a really cool Gambit pixel art. And Smoley got a really cool Asura pixel art. Phasmid here is looking real sinister. We got Palaxius floating here with some blue flames. Condor went ahead and picked a Peak Gym Leader. Korra based his off his Red Dead character. Some Lost Gamer based his off his D&D character. Big Money Smokestacks joins the Goku family, but with a more stylish version. Pyromanus got this really sick Shaman King pixel art. And finally, we got Cynics here, who also used their Red Dead character as an inspiration. Whew, okay, I will see you all next month, but with all that being said, thank you all so much for coming to this little pit stop on the corner of the internet. Peace.